service. Well done. Thank you. We're question and answer session right now, and we're gathering written questions. But one of the perks and benefits of being the moderator is I get to ask the questions I want to start with, my own questions. I'm going to start with Bernard Chan, please. Can you link in a bit of your company, Asia Financial Holdings, to your theme of sustainability development? I believe that you focus on insurance funds, retirement funds, healthcare, also, and you did mention healthcare in your speech. But can you just talk about that and those products that you have and their role in sustainability in Hong Kong?
Thanks, Barry. As Jim alluded to earlier, that Hong Kong gone through a very interesting 40, 50 years, different crises, different cycle, and like everything else, Hong Kong people, well, naturally will adapt to the new challenges. My company, we start off as retail banking. We were a major shareholder in a retail bank and also in insurance, general insurance underwriting. But over time, as a bank, we became not very competitive because Hong Kong is a free port. We compete with just about any players in the world. So not only we are competing with the locals, we have the Europeans, American, and of course, in the last 10, 15 years, the mainland Chinese banks. So over time, my bank became very uncompetitive. We're still making money, but as a shareholder, I saw my upside is very limited. So about 4 or 5 years ago, I sold the bank. At the time, that's before the crisis, of course. So it was a good price. We got out, and we found ourselves a new opportunity. And that's always Hong Kong. You always find a new opportunity, and that's in healthcare. It's no-brainer. In Hong Kong and together in many parts of Asia, we have a very growing, aging population. Hong Kong, by 2020, we have about 25% of our population over 65. China, you'll be surprised with China, but one-child policy, they're aging fast as well. And so is Singapore, and Thailand. Many countries in Asia has this issue. So we obviously find that healthcare is going to be of growing demand. And luckily enough, we also have invested in a healthcare company in Thailand for a number of years. So we now try to team up with our Thai counterparts to come to Hong Kong and also going to China. And that's always a part about Hong Kong. We adapt fast, and we always find new opportunities. And opportunities not just only here, it's opportunity in the region. And we're able to work with multiple partners for my company. I have 2 Japanese shareholders. I have ASEAN partners. And so it's not, Hong Kong is never a place about Hong Kong. It's always about Hong Kong and the region. So I hope we find a new right future for the company. We've done well for the last 40, 50 years, and now we got hit with another new challenge. But hopefully we will find ourselves a new home and a new opportunity. And by the way, many Hong Kong companies needs to now look beyond just Hong Kong. We can't just stay in Hong Kong because after all, we're only a city of 7 million people. Of course, 7 million is actually not small in many European standards. But for Hong Kong, many of us now need to branch out to, of course, China. But China is a very, very different place from Hong Kong. So my network in Hong Kong, my reputations in Hong Kong doesn't mean a thing in China. It might mean something across the border. But immediately beyond the city, behind that border, then it's like you're nobody. So we also need to work with partners in China. And my business in China is entirely in the hands of my Chinese partner. But my Chinese partner also needs me. So this is always about Hong Kong. It's a two-way thing. It's a two-way, hopefully a two-way mutually beneficial arrangement.
One thing I didn't mention is that your family has heritage going back to Thailand. Is that correct? And
Yes.
You're also chairman of the Hong Kong Thailand Business Council. Is that correct?
Indeed, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think like many of us from Hong Kong, our heritage goes back to like Jim. I just realized that you start your company the year I was born. But you came here for You've been here for 40 years. You are Hong Kong. You are one of us. My family came from China, but many of our relatives have actually moved to Thailand, and that's not unusual. Many of us in Hong Kong came from all parts of the world, mostly from China, but then we are now here in Hong Kong. Some are relatives, your relatives, probably all over Asia, and that's the great thing about us, because that's how actually business works, networking. We network not only here but around the region.
Best city in the world for networking. You're right. Paul, one thing about you that I didn't mention was that I believe you're a board member of the West Kowloon Cultural District. And can you talk about that and how that can be important to the business community, the cultural district, and how that can help support and sustain the business community?
Oh, sure, Barry. Well, the government has very generously earmarked a very big piece of land in West Kowloon for development into a cultural and arts district. And apart from the land, the government has also allocated 21.6 billion Hong Kong dollar for this to be developed. The reason being an international city, the feedback we gather from a business executive and also international investor is that basing their headquarters here, doing business here is not just making money, but as Bernard said, you have to take care of your children. So education opportunities. You have to be able to provide after 7 o'clock activities, apart from Lan Kwai Fong. So in London, in New York, you can go to theater, a lot of different things to do. And we think to be an international city, we need that particular element. It will be a very important part of our formula to succeed. So the project is going on. When it was first started, there were suspicion in the community about this will become a property project instead of a cultural project. So it got a little delayed. But in the past 3 years, our then Chief Secretary, Henry, has led the project in the right direction. We finished three rounds of consultations. We invited international renowned architects to do the master layout plans. So the things are progressing quite well. And I'm sure, Jim, you will enjoy many of the facilities there. The first facility is expected to be operational in 2016.
Good. James, I have a question from Russia, and it was actually the same question I was going to ask you. I mentioned that you started your business with $1,000 in Yokohama, Japan in 1965. Is that possible to still start and be an entrepreneur of a company, of any company like that? But I'm going to add my own twist to the question. If you were advising a young man or woman right out of university in the United States to become an entrepreneur, what city would you recommend? Hong Kong, Shanghai, Japan, somewhere else in Asia? What's the best one today?
You expect me to say? No, actually, it's funny you say that because I often do speak to university students about my company, and I told them the story of the $500 startup and all that, and one kid raised his hand in the Q&A and he said, "Mr. Thompson, if I give you $500, could you do that for me?" He said, and so I said, "Well, you give me your life and all." No, actually, I think the
that
answer
doesn't really fit the theme of taking responsibility for your own success, does it?
Well, I think the answer is, maybe not $500, maybe not $1,000, because inflation has changed all that. But I do think that the opportunities remain, and I think that's the big point. My story is interesting, and there are a lot more stories in Hong Kong of how things happened with small startups and all the rest of it. But I think when people say, "Oh, I missed the boat, and the opportunities were in the past, they're not here now," and I think that's absolute nonsense. There's so many opportunities because when I started in '65, there was no China. It was closed until the '70s, and now China is this behemoth with lots and lots of opportunities. Tricky as they may be, you're looking at massive amount of wealth generation in this country, and they're going to want everything. And I think entrepreneurial type minds will find the opportunities to do things there. As far as the city is concerned, it has to be Hong Kong. There's no question about it. I mean, I think we always talked about, will Shanghai take all our bread and butter away? Well, this massive market allowed us to be in Hong Kong and Shanghai and Beijing and Chengdu and all the rest of it. And but Hong Kong, without question, at least I would never change my mind about that, because the way the system works here, and because of the many advantages, tax being a big one. I think that to base a business here and then do things in other parts of Asia, and it's not just China. I think Southeast Asia Malaysia has some opportunities in other countries. Indonesia, Fred and I were just saying, Indonesia is booming. So there's a lot of opportunities to do different types of things in these countries and become entrepreneurial and succeed.
Good. Thanks. That's very encouraging. Paul, I've got a couple of questions here that are very similar on the accounting and the markets in China. And I'll read them both, and I'll let you decide on how you're going to answer that. Is that okay?
All right. Yeah.
Okay. This one comes from the U.S., and it's the Hong Kong-China accounting scandals recently have cost Chinese and Hong Kong companies billions of dollars of market capitalization. And so can you comment on the reforms that are being planned to help restore confidence and trust in publicly listed Hong Kong Chinese companies? And the second question comes from Finland, and it's, how do you see the recent rules about international auditing standards and IFRS, and the compliance is not required from PRC companies listed on the Hong Kong market? I assume that's true, that they're not required anymore, but I'll let you comment on both, please.
All right. Well, the Chinese accounting standards today have converged with international accounting standards. So, well, as you know, Hong Kong accounting standards adopt 100% international standards. Since Chinese accounting standards are now fully converged with international standards, and the Chinese Accounting Standards Board has signed an agreement with the International Accounting Standards Board to that effect. That means the standards between Hong Kong and the mainland are the same as far as listed companies are concerned. Because for China, the fully converged international standard was start to be used in listed companies back in 2007, back in 2008, and in 2009 they start to expand the application of the international standard to banks, financial institutions, and in 2009 they extended to other large state-owned enterprises. So not all the companies on the mainland of China use full international standards, but for listed companies, surely they adopt international standards. That's why towards the end of last year, the Hong Kong Stock Exchange made a relaxation, in quotation, relaxation saying that mainland companies can use mainland accounting standards and a few mainland accounting firms to do their annual audits for the purpose of their listing on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. At the moment, mainland accounting firms that can have this auditing right altogether are 12 in number, including the big four on the mainland of China. And these are the largest firms on the mainland. If we look at the number, at the moment there are about 6,000 plus accounting firms on the mainland. About 50 plus of them can do mainland listed companies audit on the mainland. But out of this, only 12 of them can do the audit for external reporting purposes, like Hong Kong. So I hope that gives you the background and explanation as to why Chinese companies listed on our stock exchange can do that. In fact, we in Hong Kong cannot resist that requisition, because in Hong Kong we allow Canadian companies like Manulife British companies like HSBC and other companies in, say for example, in Australia, coming to be listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange to use their home country auditing firms. They do not need to use Hong Kong auditing firms. So we must treat every country on an equal footing. In the past, we did not allow mainland companies to use mainland audit firms by reason of their standards are not yet converged with international standard. Okay. The second question about the the companies listed on the U.S. Stock Exchange having accounting scandals. Yes, there are several companies, but the background is these companies went to the U.S. and did the backdoor listing instead of a normal IPO. I think the regulatory philosophy between the stock exchanges in the U.S. and stock exchange here is quite different. This kind of companies, if they are good enough, probably they would be able to be listed here. The fact that they go through reverse the black door, if I may say so, tells something about the quality of the company itself. As to the auditing issues, I would say by and large, the profession in Hong Kong, has been doing very well. You do not see many corporate failures here, even in the face of Asian financial crisis back in 1998 or the recent financial tsunami. Because usually when the times are bad, then the companies are more easy to go bust. But if you look at the Hong Kong market, really not many listed company having such problem. But we tend to have bad apples in a big tree. This is a fact of life. But I don't think it casts any doubt on the integrity of the profession and the regulatory rigor of the profession here.
Yeah, thank you. One of the things from my own professional experiences I've seen is the Hong Kong Stock Exchange going after and encouraging secondary listings. And we talked about foreign companies who may be listed in their home market, but the Hong Kong Stock Exchange is encouraging them to do a secondary listing on this exchange here. And part of the reason is that when foreign companies have China assets, because of the political uncertainty, the home country might have a discount built into the share price, effectively a China risk. But because the investment analyst community understands that, there's probably less of a discount on a Hong Kong Stock Exchange than it would be for foreign exchange. And that's very important when a foreign company might have China assets like mining properties or resource properties. Doing the secondary listing will get a higher share price because less of a discount, because this community understands that. Bernard, back to you. Property is a main component of the Hong Kong economy, and basically property development is a major wealth generator in this city. Can you comment on Hong Kong's success in developers creating sustainable buildings in Hong Kong?
That's got to be a tricky question, isn't it? You're absolutely right. Property or homes to Hong Kong people is more than just a home. This is to them it's a commodity. This is how they trade up in the value chain. As you put it, it's a wealth generation, a tool for wealth generation. So it has been part of the system. But I think increasingly people in Hong Kong now, as I mentioned earlier, we no longer treat this place as just a temporary, borrowed time in a borrowed place. This is our home. So increasingly people in Hong Kong are demanding more than just a home. It's the quality of life. So in the last few years, the government has also recognized the increasing demand from the consumers. Though we have actually now have almost like a revamp of many of the old policies, where now we want to make sure that the new design of most of these so-called housing estates will meet the new standards, especially the environment standard. They are more sustainable. there will be more airflow. Because the problem from Hong Kong is they're very, you look at Hong Kong, I mean, with 7 million people, but only really less than 30% of our land mass is really being populated. Why? Because 40% is in the country parks and 30% in the rural areas. So really only 28, to be exact, it's only 28% of our land mass is being used. So in one way, you can say we are very green because we produce very little carbon emission. It's very concentrated. Whereas I'm sure in Los Angeles, is, you'll be traveling in every direction as possible. So in Hong Kong, that sense is good, but at the same time, because it's so dense, everything goes vertical. But when it gets vertical, you also create another problem, so the blockage of airflow and so on. The visual is also no good. So these are the issues that in the last couple of years, I think people are now demanding changes. So we are now trying to see if we can somehow maintain that connectivity. People are so accustomed to it. Anyone in Hong Kong can get to work within 1 hour, pretty much, with our mass transport. But now we have to start looking and say, well, if we don't want the density, can we afford to move a little further out? Can we start to tap into the rural areas? Now, of course, the green groups are also very concerned with that. So it's a question how you balance that. And in Hong Kong, unlike, I know I'm going to get myself in trouble, our counterparts in Shanghai or our counterparts in Singapore, if the government decides to do something, it's going to happen. In Hong Kong, well, not anymore these days. You got to do it. If anything you do, you got to make sure that you consult them, consult all the different stakeholders. So it takes a little bit longer time. As you alluded earlier about that whole cultural hub, and Jim said that in your lifetime, I hope it's going to be within your lifetime. Why is it taking so long? Because this is Hong Kong. You need to make sure that every stakeholders are consulted. And now under Paul leadership, hopefully that it will be done by 2016. I'm sure in Shanghai it will be done in like 3 years. But that's not how Hong Kong works, and that's not the spirit of Hong Kong. Here in this city, I think we pride ourselves to be, even though that we are not every one of us have a chance to vote for our leader, but yet I think every one of us proud to say that our voice will be heard.
I have a very quick follow-up question tying in the theme of property and sustainability. Can I get a quick answer to this next question? Are today's Hong Kong property prices sustainable?
Accountant to answer that question.
Okay, no comment. Fair enough.
Yeah, actually, in terms of transaction, not a lot these days, and we see price coming down very slowly. Mm-hmm. But I think everyone in Hong Kong, except those who haven't got a property, would agree with me that we cannot afford a sharp fall in our property price. Mm-hmm. So if there is any adjustment, hopefully it would be a moderate, controlled stabilization, waiting for the purchasing power to catch up.
Okay, good. I've got a last question here. We're running out of time, but very quickly, James. Now that you've mastered international removals, you're top of the chain in the wine industry. What's your next business venture?
Well, if you really want to know, actually we're doing now we're going into fine arts. We're going to build a global network of fine arts removals for museum pieces and that sort of thing. We're actually doing it already in Paris. We just bought a company based in Finland, which has offices in Russia and Holland and Belgium and China. So we're determined, as our network of moving companies has been so successful, why not have a network of fine arts companies? So that's the next effort.
Good linkage. 3 great speakers, 3 great insights from each of them. On behalf of everyone here, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bernard Chan, Mr. Pao Chan, Mr. James Thompson, and Mr. Barry Madano.